I hear complaints of toothache every day.
I have a toothache. Please take my mind off it.
But this plea of a young patient sounds different. In it, I sense a profundity, one that has set me thinking like never before. Yes, the humble and often taken for granted tooth can be the cause of immense agony to many. Statistics say that 6 out of every 10 persons in the world would have suffered from acute toothache at least once in his or her lifetime. Toothache can range from dull to sharp, to throbbing to excruciating, sometimes as furiously intense as labor pain. Dental cavities, mostly caries and gum diseases, are the primary causes of toothache and infection. But so much for the physical aspect. I realized there is something more, something far deeper. The International Association for Study of Pain defines pain as an unpleasant, subjective, sensory, and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage, indicating that pain meant the occurrence of nociception and the person's expression to the same. Nociception is derived from the word noci, which means unpleasant.
I have a toothache. It's nerve-wracking. Please take my mind off it.
As you know, nerves are the common pathways for transmission of nerve impulses, such as nociception within the body. The tooth is innervated by the trigeminal nerve, which is the fifth cranial nerve that emerges from the brainstem and branches into ophthalmic nerve, maxillary nerve, mandibular nerve. The sensory branches of the maxillary nerve start from the upper teeth and gums, whilst the sensory branches of the mandibular nerve start from the lower teeth, the lower jaw, and gums. The tooth is made up of 4 tissues: enamel, the hard outer covering; dentin, supporting the crown of the tooth; cementum, the specialized bony substance covering the root, helping the tooth stay attached to the alveolar bone; pulp, the soft living connective tissue with its nerves and blood vessels. The pulp contains cells called odontoblasts, whose main function is to generate the fluid inside the dentin. In case of toothache and inflammation, the dentinal fluid generated passes through the fine dentinal tubules present in the dentin. The fluid passes into the pulpal space, wherein the odontoblasts become subsequently involved. The cell membrane of each pulpal cell has 2 layers of phospholipids placed this way. The head with its phosphorus component is on the outside, and the 2 tails containing fatty acids face each other in the center. The fatty acid present in abundance in the tails is arachidonic acid, since this is derived from all the lipids consumed in vegetarian and non-vegetarian foodstuffs, with the exception of marine sources. The dentinal fluid stimulates an enzyme, phospholipase A2, present in the vicinity, which breaks down the phospholipids present in the pulpal cells by cutting the neck and separating the head from the 2 tails. The arachidonic acid thus released from the tails interacts with the enzyme cyclooxygenase, popularly referred to as COX. As a result, the arachidonic acid gets converted to the notorious trouble-causing prostaglandin, PGE2. The nerve endings present inside the pulp have receptors called nociceptors at their tips. The PGE2 thus formed stimulates these nociceptors, and the message gets carried via the nerves to the brain.
I have a toothache and seems like it's consuming me. Please take my mind off it.
When the prostaglandin E2 sits in the receptor in the nerve endings, the unpleasant message is conveyed by the maxillary nerve or the mandibular nerve, depending on which tooth is affected, to the thalamus. From here, the nerve impulse is transmitted to the 3 lobes of the brain, wherein 26 areas are involved in interpreting this information. The parietal lobe, on receiving the nociception impulse, starts to construe the nature and location of nociception. The frontal lobe becomes involved in the thinking aspect, makes the person start believing that he is either indeed suffering from a horrible toothache or a mild one, irrespective of the severity of the disease process causing the toothache. The limbic lobe is responsible for the mood and the emotional response to the toothache. The microglial cells in these 3 lobes of the brain, on receiving the message, initiate a process similar to that in the pulpal cells. The COX-2 enzymes in the 3 lobes of the brain convert the arachidonic acid generated by the breakdown of microglial cell membrane into PGE2. There is also a COX-3 enzyme in the brain which participates similarly to PGE2 production. The PGE2 interacts with the EP receptors present in the lobes of the brain for the message of nociception to be conveyed. The brain integrates the messages received from the 3 lobes, establishing the final neurosignature of pain. And all this in a fraction of a second. It is here where the mind meets the body.
I have a toothache. I could scream. Pray, free me from this agony. Please take my mind off it.
Blue Cross Laboratories India presents a powerful therapy that really works. Meftal Forte, an extremely effective formulation of mefenamic acid and paracetamol that is pioneering a revolution in pain management and therapy. The 2 most important features that set the high efficacy, quick-acting Meftal Forte way ahead of all the other NSAIDs are: Meftal Forte understands the intricate neural mechanisms of the physiology and the psychology of pain and works in a designer action plan, tackling nociception peripherally and also tackling pain centrally. The key ingredient, mefenamic acid in Meftal Forte, works in a 2-way designer action plan. Peripheral action. Mefenamic acid blocks the COX-2 enzyme locally to inhibit prostaglandin synthesis. Additionally, only mefenamic acid and no other NSAID inhibits the already released prostaglandins by blocking their receptor sites, namely the EP receptors, and fostering immediate relief of pain. Result: quick relief from inflammation and prevention of further generation of nociceptive messages. Central action. Mefenamic acid is the only NSAID that can enter the brain due to its ability to penetrate the blood-brain barrier as well as blood-CSF barrier. Similar to its peripheral activity, mefenamic acid inhibits COX-2 as well as blocks the EP receptors in the brain, thus tackling the pain itself promptly, whereas other NSAIDs act only peripherally to exert a mere anti-nociceptive action. Result: unique central action tackling pain. Action of paracetamol. In perfect tandem, the quick-acting paracetamol achieves peak plasma concentrations in less than 10 minutes, resulting in prompt onset of pain relief. Also, paracetamol powerfully blocks the COX-3 enzyme in the brain to complement the central action of mefenamic acid, which has a strong COX-2 blockage effect. Meftal Forte advantage. Powered by mefenamic acid and paracetamol, Meftal Forte is one of the most prescribed pain management products for its core quality. Unique and quick synergistic action for powerful and sustained pain relief. Approved by most pharmacopoeias in the world, Both mefenamic acid and paracetamol are well tolerated. Added to this, its non-narcotic and non-addictive character makes Methyl Forte safe for all, including nursing mothers. Yes, pain is an inextricable part of life. But for every pain, there is courage and fortitude to let you not relent in adversity, but to acknowledge it, face it, and weed it out from the root. And in much the same way, for every toothache, there is Methyl Forte, the true analgesic that excels in weeding the pain out from the root. Methyl Forte, the powerful therapy that really works, empowering you with the most effective therapy for rapid and sustained pain relief. Methyl Forte from the House of Blue Cross.